Maybe this is right, but I'm still staring at your silhouette. But what if you're everything I need? A fire in my heart, the air I breathe. What if I'm incomplete without you by my side? But what if I go against my heart instead of confessing from the start? What if I miss out on the life meant for us? I need you by my side.
Should I be scared? The feeling's so different now. You got me floating here, a feather in the air. Oh, but when the wind blows, will I tumble or sail away? Or would you have me stay? And what if I escape? I know
I'm spinning in a vicious cycle. I'm scared of doing something I'll regret. Maybe this is right, but I'm still staring at your silhouette. But what if you're everything I need? A part of my heart, the air I breathe. What if I'm incomplete without you by my side? But what if I go against my heart instead of confessing from the start? What if I miss out on the life meant for us? I need you by my side, by your side. I'm not afraid. We found something that'll never fade. We can be ourselves and figure out the rest along the way. But what if you're everything I need? A fire in my heart, the air I breathe. What if I'm incomplete without you by my side?
We're currently waiting for Evan to show up here. Hopefully soon. Just a quick reminder that I'm waiting for Evan to show up before we get started, so it might be another few minutes, so just bear with us, please. All right, well, let's go ahead and see if we can. There's Evan. Just as I was about to get started, Evan just shows up here. Let's get him up here. Go ahead and get some things closed up here, and we'll get started for our lightning Friday. How you doing, man?
I was talking about lightning with someone else, and I'm like, oh, it's time to talk to lightning with Twitter.
There you go. Get him to jump on the Lightning Friday live podcast session here.
Yeah, for sure. Hold up, just retweet. No, we can kick things off. Do we have Jesper joining us today?
Unfortunately, we do not. He's at BitBlock Boom, as many people are today. And so I don't think he's going to be able to make it.
It's okay. Well, I hope he's having fun down there. I definitely have some FOMO. It seems like an incredible conference. Fortunately, I couldn't make it this year, but I'm definitely going to try to make it down next. So,
yeah,
let's
absolutely.
see. Yeah. Gary seems like an awesome guy, and I've got to know him a little bit this year. So, yeah, hopefully I could like present something, or at the very least, I'm going to try to attend. So, yeah, it just seems like a great crowd, and it's definitely Bitcoin only. I've just heard great things about it. So, yeah, definitely going to make my way down to Dallas next year. All right, just shoot my tweet off.
All right. So just to go ahead and get us started here, I did go ahead and bring Suheb up here as well, maybe to be a temporary host with us while Jesper is away at the conference here. But before we get started with our actual conversation, let's go ahead and get our sponsors out of the way here. So to start with, We have Lightning Junkies. This is the podcast that I host, dedicated to the Bitcoin Lightning Network and, broadly education within that space. I think it's the best Lightning Network podcast out there. It might be one of the only Bitcoin podcasts out there. Bitcoin Lightning podcast out there. We also have two other sponsors. We have Zeus Wallet. It is the most functional mobile way to access your node remotely, while either on C Lightning, on LND, Eclair, or with some of the other lesser known ways of accessing Lightning like LND Hub. And I also hear that you're getting really close to getting that redesign going. Do you want to give us a quick update on that?
Yeah, sure thing. So for those who want to get a sneak preview of the new version of the app, we have an alpha release out. It's version 0.6.0 alpha 1. We have that on iOS test flight as well as on GitHub. It's not fully functioned yet, but you get the bulk of the new theme of the app and some really awesome functionality, including atomic multipath payments and you have the whole LN URL stack now too. So you could log into a website with LN URL auth, trigger channel opens with LN URL channel. So maybe this weekend we might have our second iteration of the alpha out. I've been working a lot on coin control for LND as well as the new routing page, but we're also got our integration with mempool and their recommended fee rates almost ready, and a whole bunch of bug fixes that have been reported to us. So thanks everyone who's checked it out already and reported stuff. You guys are the real MVPs. You're effectively our QA team. So really appreciate that. And just stay tuned for updates. We're going to be pushing out these early releases every week or two. And we're just going to be pushing forward. It's probably going to take a few more months at least to iron everything out. But we're aiming to have full coin control, external account imports, and PSBT signing via QR codes and camera. We got LN URL in full. We have atomic multipath payments in LND. We are probably going to have offers through C Lightning REST. I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit with Suheb later. We're on Android and iOS, and we've got Tor built in. We support connecting to LND, C Lightning, Eclair. We're trying to become the best way to take your Lightning node from home or in the cloud on the go with you.
Absolutely. And then finally, our last sponsor here is Amboss, the best Lightning Network explorer out there. It has communities and other paid features that makes it kind of stand out from some of the other Lightning Network explorers out there. So if you haven't checked it out yet, go ahead and do so. All right. So we kind of got all that fun stuff out of the way. And we kind of have our list of topics here. I think, maybe we should start, kind of crib from, Tales from the Crypt a little bit, how they start with the block number. Maybe we should start doing the current capacity of the network here.
Sure, let's kick it off. Do you have it in front of you?
I, of course, did not, but we'll go ahead and bring up Amboss here. So we're sitting at 2,391 Bitcoin. I believe that's about 110 million or so, give or take. So that's obviously a pretty big number than where we were sitting in like March, for example. What's your take, Evan?
Growth is excellent. I think it's got to be around 20% month over month right about now. That's really encouraging. We have a whole lot of those nodes. the majority of them on Tor too, which is incredibly encouraging too. And I just foresee these numbers to continue to grow at a really strong rate for the next coming months as we see the rollout of Bitcoin as a legal tender. I guess that's the terminology in El Salvador. So that's really exciting. Was helping consult for one of the payment processors down there. I think they're called Ibex Mercado. So that's going to be really cool to see. And number go up. The most important number, capacity, users. And we still have a long way to go to get to the levels that we really would like to see. But nonetheless, the growth rate that we're seeing right now is really great and encouraging.
Yeah, especially about the percentage of nodes on Tor is quite exciting. Right now, I'm looking at Clark Moody's dashboard. The number is 73.8%. That's a big percentage of big chunk of the network. Almost the majority of the network on Tor nodes. That I think is quite a good.
Yeah, that is awesome, and the Tor capacity and combined with how Lightning in general does its onion like routing just like Tor, super encouraging. Thinking about the privacy gains we can get. Not to say that there's not a lot of problems as it stands right now with privacy on LN. There certainly are a lot of issues, but it's good to see that node operators are thinking about privacy and using Tor. I mean, perhaps some are just getting that connectivity to get back to their nodes at home and putting the node on the Tor network as well. But it's just an encouraging sign, and we definitely want Tor to be sort of the standard. So we're seeing that a lot with the implementations that are out there, all supporting it with the node builder yourself devices and prepackaged nodes that people are running on Raspberry Blitzes and whatnot. It's all super encouraging. You love to see it.
Yeah, Umbrella, Raspberry Blitz. I think all of these implementations are by default. So I think that's kind of now in the percentages on the network.
Yeah, it works out the gate, and those projects, is definitely, I would say, the most common way for people to get on the network, and they're definitely driving that. So it's awesome to see.
Yeah, I have a problem, in that regard. So basically, I operate a node on ClearNet, and now I have problems connecting to any node which is actually running on Tor. They have to initiate the connection, then only I can connect. So this is like it's becoming more and more difficult for me to actually, pick out peers who are actually on ClearNet.
So the two aren't mutually exclusive, though. You could have a plain net IP and a Tor IP. What's holding you back from getting on Tor?
Yeah, it's my setup, the node that I've been running on ClearNet since 2019. So I've not really updated it. So and it's completely like DIY. Like I'm just running basic software, not packaged stack like Umbrella or Raspberry Blitz. So I'm just kind of lazy to figure out how to actually enable Tor on it.
Gotcha. Okay, well, if you ever need help with that, happy to help out. I'm actually working on my own little dev stack that I might roll out into a prod sort of setup. And for me, I need to have all the different integration set up so that I can make sure the functionality on Zeus is working on all the different implementations and APIs. So I'm putting together a new setup with like an 8 gigabyte Pi so that it has enough RAM for everything. It's just on testnet for now. But got a little custom setup for now.
Yeah, ClearNet has all other problems also, right? If you're running a node in ClearNet, you have to think about port forwarding, etc. So recently, mine router setting got updated, and I was not aware. And I just restarted my node again, and now it's not connecting to 50% of my peers. But then I realized that all of my settings are gone, so I had to like reconfigure my port forwarding. So,
Gotcha.
whereas if you're on Tor, you don't have to worry about any of that.
Yeah, exactly. No NAT, no UPnP, none of that junk. It's just like boom, worked out the gate with that your hidden services.
Right.
But otherwise, someone who wants to run that node on ClearNet and have incoming connection to them, they'd have to allow port 9735, which is the gossip port for the Lightning Network, to be open. So definitely a lot of benefits to just running on Tor. Ease of setup, especially with these these node platforms, and the privacy of not having to reveal your IP address from your home router. So a lot of benefits there, but there's also trade-offs too. Like your connectivity isn't as good. Your ping time can be lagging. You're depending on Tor network, which is generally can be notoriously unreliable at times. So there's a lot to take into consideration. If you're trying to think about running something in production for like a company or something, as long as you're not having compliance issues with running on Tor, you probably want to run both PlaneNet or ClearNet, as they say, and Tor.
Yeah, I think corporate setups would mainly do ClearNet, but I think they'll have, given that now the majority of the network is actually on Tor, so it might make sense to do both, right? Otherwise, connectivity will be difficult to establish.
Yeah, absolutely. You definitely have an advantage, and that's the good thing about these implementations. You can attach multiple IPs to them, so you got that going for you at least.
All right. So I wanted to maybe kind of change the subject here, if you guys don't mind. So I think one of the bigger news topics that came out recently involving Lightning Network was Substack adding some options on their end to give more ability for their content creators on their website to accept Bitcoin over the Lightning Network and Bitcoin, I guess, through OpenNode. What do you guys think about this?
I think it's a pretty encouraging step. So they've got like a pretty substantial user base. That being said, it seems like it's only going to be rolled out for Bitcoin specific creators for now. I know they've got like Dan Held's newsletter on there, so I'm sure he's got that enabled. But nonetheless, it's a really encouraging first step. Anything to help onboard people onto the system. I think for the most part, most regular average people not into Bitcoin aren't really aware of the Lightning Network, so this could help out a long way. But there's also going to be so much that changes. Like we don't even have Bolt 12 or offers really running at full capacity, and those mechanisms will probably be built into these systems soon too. So if you're supporting Lightning Network this early, it's great. We love it. We love to see it. But people also got to be mindful when integrating stuff that you're probably going to have to stay on top of it and keep iterating on it too.
Yeah, I would think it's a good POC, maybe, right? But I don't think overall in terms of the adoption cycle of Bitcoin, we are at a stage where people will actually be spending their Bitcoin, right? So I have mixed feelings about it. It's good to have it, but I don't see significant traction on it, and especially we definitely need tools like offers for better UX anyway, right? Which I think LNURL can address to a certain extent. but it'll be good to have it natively as well. But overall, my take is I have like mixed feelings. I'm not super bullish about it. Good to have it, but I don't think it'll see a lot of traction.
I think I would much rather have a kind of native version of Substack instead of having Substack with Bitcoin Lightning kind of stapled on as like an afterthought of like, oh yeah, here's this bullshit. Stay on our centralized platform, please. So like in that sense, I would much rather just have something kind of similar to what we were talking about on the Bolt 12 episode, where we have, engineering some kind of torrent-based system and offers or what have you, maybe getting impervious.ai involved or something of that nature to kind of build out these systems where it's as direct as possible, cut out the damn middleman, cut out like Onlyfans, like another topic that we're going to talk about here, even though they're kind of going back and forth on their thing. It still illustrates how centralized platforms suck and how being encouraged by a centralized platform adding Bitcoin Lightning it's fine, I guess, but I find I'm pretty skeptical that anyone should ultimately give a shit. We should obviously be pushing more for Substack directly on the Lightning Network that's not centralized, especially if it's text, because like as we previously discussed, things bigger than text are a bit more complicated, but just text by itself is small enough to probably propagate over the Lightning Network and not cost too much. So yeah, like I don't think I care about Substack. I don't think I care about OnlyFans. I just see the kind of future version of all this where we don't give a shit about these companies. These companies are all long since bankrupt and gone, or have adapted and turned into some kind of decentralized tool in some way or something. I don't know.
Yeah, you definitely make a great point, Chaz. Something like Substack might not even exist at least in the same form that it does today in the future, when these content creators can just generate offers and subscriptions through Lightning. So yeah, that's very interesting. It's almost as if some of these businesses will have to try to get ahead of the curve and integrate it into their platforms ahead of time before the content creators who are looking for these options and are looking to get paid in Bitcoin go ahead and just subvert these centralized platforms altogether.
I mean, I feel like it's a very interesting area that we could bring Twitter into the mix, because I think most of us in here would love if Twitter actually added Bitcoin Lightning, even if it's a centralized social network and there's a lot of trade-offs and bullshit associated with that. But even so, I think we see the possibility of much more like newbies getting involved. So I think the easy example is, let's say we had this Twitter space, kind of maybe more similar to the Rusty and Stefan episode that we had a couple weeks ago. That was a bit more, had a specific topic pre-planned, whatever. Maybe we could have charged, 1,000 sats to, enter it. And if that was the case, and that was, what are these nerds over here doing in these Twitter spaces that require the sats thing? Maybe I'll go learn it, and so I could get in here and kind of overcome my FOMO. I don't know, but like, I definitely feel like we're going to have to deal with the reality of these centralized platforms being the best bootstrapping method to get more newbies into the fold, as it were.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I think overall, like from the architecture perspective, the way the applications and social media has been developing on the internet, it is centralized first, right? That is a pattern, right? So anybody who comes up with new service, they don't think about decentralization. They think about, okay, let me create a website, centralized service where I can unlock the value. I think somebody has to break that pattern. Maybe Blue Sky is the right initiative. where we look at decentralized control as the pattern built into the design of the application, design of the idea itself, right? Um, Maybe that is when we'll see more decentralization in terms of the actual service as well, not just the money. But I think, from an engineering standpoint, that's an incredibly complex task. It's not a simple thing to generally build decentralized application, right? So I think we'll have to see, but hopefully, whoever breaks that model first and gains traction can set the examples on how to go down this path.
So yeah, I feel like this again, kind of going back to OnlyFans, I think this perfectly demonstrates how like the path that we need to take as Bitcoiners is to say, cool, Substack, you're going in generally the right direction, but like I think we just need to build or encourage those who directly build these things either with sats or sending out rebroadcasting their information, whatever. And so like I kind of wanted to bring OnlyFans into this a bit. So I'm sure most everyone knows that they tried to pivot their central business model because they were getting pressure from their payment processors. And like this is something that I think most Bitcoiners are quote unquote used to because of things like WikiLeaks, where the government directly or indirectly put pressure on PayPal and the payment processors to be like, don't let any money get to these guys. So they were forced to jump onto Bitcoin. And I think we're seeing the same thing happen with the rest of the internet, basically, with some of the bigger taboos of our culture, sex workers being an obvious example there, and why it's hard for me to see a real alternative besides Bitcoin for this OnlyFans situation. I was watching a relatively normie YouTube channel. If you guys ever watched Linus Tech Tips, it's a fairly normie focused show, but they had a segment where they basically talked about the subject and came to the conclusion that cryptocurrency, they're talking more broadly, but cryptocurrency is the path to go because there is just no way to build a platform that would be able to avoid the issues that OnlyFans ran into, basically running into the risk and compliance departments of these large payment processors who have these kind of onerous regulations on top of them, and so kind of will pass them on to their largest, most risky customers, basically.
Yeah, I think you're pretty on the money right there. As long as these businesses are beholden to these third parties for pretty much any component of their business, but specifically the payment processing, then they're always going to be subject to the whims of these processors or banks, especially when it comes to risque or controversial content. So, yeah, I don't think there's another alternative. Like, what other sort of payment method can you facilitate the clearance of a payment all by yourself with? Like, there is no alternative. So, I'm a little surprised that OnlyFans hasn't really gotten into any sort of cryptocurrency thing yet. Like, maybe they've announced future plans, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I know there was another sort of OnlyFans clone that was out there that a lot of content providers were moving over to, but it seems like that was only credit cards as well. I saw one GitHub project for open source clone of OnlyFans with crypto payments, but that was using like Ethereum and some third party provider. Let's see what comes of it. Obviously, I think we all know that things are going to be heading in that direction, but who's really going to make the first step? Who's going to try to actually launch a platform with Bitcoin and hopefully Lightning? Especially when people are going to these platforms for instant gratification, right? And what a better way to capture that with near instant Lightning Network transactions.
Yeah, but my take on this is, money is one aspect of it, right? Which I think becomes a very easy choke point to choke on, right? But what about infrastructure, right? That itself is centralized as well, right? If you're operating a centralized service, if you remove money as a choke point, then that becomes the next choke point, right? So how can that be addressed? Right? If OnlyFans, let's say, go towards Bitcoin only and start gaining traction, then the next thing that they will come after is their infrastructure, right?
Right. And so essentially is what you're saying is what we kind of talked about on the previous episode once again, where we need to decentralize both sides. You need to decentralize the payment processing, but you also have to decentralize how you deliver the content to the end customer. In this case, some Johns jerking off or whatever. But so like it. So I think that those things are gonna become much more common. I think after like that Impervious.ai hackathon, some interesting things came out of that. Some proof of concepts came out of that. I saw that the former Shock wallet turned into lightning.page, which kind of gives you like a bare bones proof of concept on what a quote unquote only Lightning fans might look like or something.
Have you tried it out yet, Chaz?
I haven't tried it beyond kind of just poking around, because I actually have to like add the API or their API to my node software, and my node is set up using a PTC Pay server, and I need to figure out how to get the Docker working for all that, and that starts to go over my head and starts to make me not want to do it, etc. So I haven't got around to it yet.
Gotcha, I see. Okay, well, I can't pay with fiat here, as I do not have a PayPal anymore. But I guess I could pay a custodial node here, or I set up the wrapper with the API. Anyway, this seems like a really awesome sort of proof of concept site for providing content over Lightning. It seems to have like ability to do live streaming. All of the content is hosted over a web torrent, which is a very powerful protocol. And Capitalist Dog is a really cool guy. It's really cool to see him sort of pivoting and doing something unique that no one else is really doing. So this is definitely on my radar. I admittedly have to set my own page up and start messing around with it. But yeah, this is the sort of experimentation we want to see. So hat tip to him. You guys can check it out. The site is lightning.page.
I guess my only thought or concern here, not really a concern, is like, how do we get beyond proof of concept? Because I'm sure if you've been in Bitcoin for X amount of years, you're going to have tried a stupid amount of proof of concepts and wallets and platforms that all don't exist anymore. Like how could we make sure lightning.page or something like it turns into something that more of the world can actually get use out of, instead of sitting in a Twitter space jerking off about it?
It's really going to depend on the content creators. If we get some really awesome content creators, people already have a good pre-existing followings, and they're like, all right, I'm making all this revenue through, I don't know, OnlyFans or Patreon or whatever the hell it may be. And, I think I'm getting a raw deal here. So I'm not going to make the jump over fully, but I'm going to start dipping my toe into this platform where I take a higher percentage of the revenue share. And, perhaps they also bundle that in with exclusive content there. That's what it's going to take, like how do we get, big content providers like, who's even big on Patreon right now? Like Tim Dillon or something, where you get like a famous OnlyFans person. I don't know who those are, but that's what it's going to take. It's going to take the existing content creators that are at the top of their game to say, okay, I can come into this platform. The risk to me is going to be minimal. Let's try it out. And also making it enticing enough for the other side of the equation, like sweetening the deal for their user base to try this different platform.
Basically sounds like the problem of the chicken and the egg here, where like we need to have a bunch of eggs already ready for the chickens. Okay, I totally screwed up the analogy, but like it whatever. It's just like we need to have onboarded users first almost. Like I kind of agree with what you said, that we need to, have some celebrities in order to kind of pull people in a certain way. But I mean, I feel like there needs to be a kind of larger audience of just Bitcoin Lightning people, or people that just have this in their toolbox, even if they aren't maybe at the level that we are at, where we constantly talk about it all day. It's our jobs are kind of related to it, whatever. And so it's, how can we get this stuff into Joe Schmo's pocket, even if it's just a, wallet of Satoshi or a Mun or a Phoenix or whatever. I'm not going to be picky for, people just getting started. Just get your feet wet or anything. Come on, guys. But that's still like the $10 trillion question here. Like, how do you actually get people to want to do this? Like, I started the podcast with that same idea of like, I went to Fold and like asked them. So it's like, hey, Fold, are you going to be the reason why people, end up using Lightning or whatever? Same thing with Bitrefill, obviously. Like these things where they actually have real use cases where, I can save, 10% on DoorDash on Bitrefill or something, or even more if you use it with Strike. That seems like a pretty cool use case where, most people are like 15%. Yeah, I like saving 15%. I don't care about this Bitcoin thing, but 15% is cool. Like, I think that basically needs to happen on some major thing. I don't even know what that would be. Maybe it's a celebrity, some really attractive naked person decides to go Bitcoin only, and so that gets, a lot of people over. I still don't know if that's really going to be true, like the top-down approach. Like my inference is that we're going to need to go the opposite direction and, try to give people as much conviction as possible, so they're not just looking at Bitcoin and being like, oh, cool, Bitcoin. So what about Cardano? That I hear that's cool. Let me go do that now, because the conviction wasn't built in. It was just about short-term money things, and not about maybe the grander picture. So I don't know what the answer is, besides just more education and just trying to get the message out there further, and just having the conversations with people, having conversations with sex workers, and people like that, people that sell drugs and stuff too. There's a lot of people that don't like these things, to be fair. But I don't really care about those people having their opinions. They can have their opinions, but I think people should be free to, do drugs, look at sex stuff, and not have, someone in the middle saying, naughty, naughty, why are you doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. you know, at the end of the day, this stuff is all about financial freedom and empowering people, whether that be, you know, sex workers or consumers, you know, even if it's for stuff we don't like. So yeah, I mean, I think this would have been a really awesome opportunity for our community to sort of swoop in and take advantage of, but you know, it seems OnlyFans has reversed their decision. Maybe they flip flop a little bit more as they're duking it out with their banks and payment processors, but it seems like you know, they're going to try to make it work as it's such a large percentage of their business. But you know, you got to think that behind the scenes they got to be thinking about cryptocurrency as an alternative, and perhaps that's something that they threaten their processors with. Maybe they said, okay, well, you could do that, but you know, we've built out of this functionality or this capacity, and if you guys don't let us run the core of our business, then we're going to go on without you. So, you know, we don't know the discussions that have gone on behind closed doors. But, you know, as far as bringing on, you know, these normies or content creators and that the average people like consume content from, I think it's going to eventually come. I mean, I feel like the last year and a half or so, we've just seen so many athletes like being open and to, you know, taking parts of their salaries or whatnot. Like one of the highest NBA draft pick this year decided to turn his bonus into Bitcoin with, I mean, it's not a great company, but you know, he did it with BlockFi, and he's going to be making, you know, a nice chunk of change and getting in sats now. So like, this is something people are thinking about. People outside of tech, outside of our scene and industry are thinking about. So, you know, what we were talking about is not outside the realm of possibility. It's just like, who's going to be the first person to take that big step? And, you know, we also need like a platform for someone to put together that I can go pay with Lightning and Bitcoin and get these subscriptions. There are definitely challenges with stuff like the push versus the pull nature of, you know, Lightning versus credit cards. But stuff like Bolt 12 offers and like AMP subscriptions are really going to bridge that gap. So, you know, I think it's about time people start thinking about how to put stuff together. It's awesome to see lightning.page sort of be the first foray into that sort of stuff. But, you know, soon we got to start pitching people. So let's see what we could build, and you know, hopefully they'll come.
So something else that has come out recently that seems kind of related to what we're talking about here is a fork of Sphinx chat called Zion, which is marketing itself as like a social media experience, but it's, you know, a fork of Sphinx chat. And so as of right now, I don't see too much of a difference between it. I definitely started my opinion, like my opinion started as being kind of very negative towards them, but I guess as of right now, it's pretty positive. I guess it's more about, you know, there's more people trying more things, so I guess that's a good thing. So I can't poo-poo it that much, but I guess more my opinion is Sphinx chat's fine. I don't think I like it anymore though, so I don't think I like Zion unless they kind of do some massive changes and change things around. But, you know, putting my personal stuff aside, I find it interesting that there's more and more of a push towards like having things directly on the Lightning Network, you know, instead of having, or as much as possible, instead of having it, like we're kind of discussing this problem of having the content delivery still being a potential bottleneck for centralized companies, that we have several things that are, again, I guess proof of concept in a certain sense, kind of giving us this content delivery. In this case, it's kind of more limited to podcasts and, pictures and small videos still, but it's still kind of here. So it just kind of makes you think that maybe in 5 years, we'll have something really robust and powerful, kind of doing something similar or better, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like we see that it's sort of like a minimal viable product. There's a lot of glitches, I would say. It's not quite a smooth experience. With Sphinx, they have their cloud-hosted nodes. We have 2 tiers, but you could also connect to your own node, of course, if you install the software. I believe Umbrella's got a package for that. But what I've seen with Sphinx is like they often don't have nodes available. So it seems like Zion is doing like pretty much the same thing with a forked version of their network. I don't think they're compatible, but at least it looks like they're willing to spin up a whole lot of nodes for people to purchase from them through monthly subscription. So, I have a level of skepticism, of course, but this is really what we want to see. We want to see more competition, more people experimenting, more people bringing market stuff to the marketplace, even if they are forked. Personally, I haven't tried it, so I can't talk about it more. And of course, we'd like to see like more stuff made from scratch and not just forked. But generally speaking, it's very encouraging to see more Lightning Network products.
Yep. I think it makes sense to experiment more, try to figure out what can possibly click. That's always progress, I guess. But I haven't tried it specifically, so I cannot comment on Zion per se. But it's good to see, businesses trying out and figuring out models where they can potentially unlock some killer app.
Just a quick reminder for all of our audience members out there that are currently listening, please don't be afraid to request speaker privileges so you could ask a question. It does not have to be related to the topic we're talking about, just has to be related to the Bitcoin Lightning Network, or at least Bitcoin, if we're going to deviate a little bit here. All right, so something else that I wanted to bring up is Crypto Graffiti's new project here, which is btcoriginstories.com. Basically, he just does these kind of short interviews, kind of doing the traditional podcast first question of how'd you get into Bitcoin kind of thing. And I find it very interesting. And then the component that kind of links it to the Lightning Network is that, so if you pay for each episode costs a certain amount of sats. I can't remember how much, but pretty trivial, like a quarter or something. And the payment is split between Crypto Graffiti and the guest. I'm not sure how much that makes sense to pay for the guest in that way, but I guess it also does make sense. What do you guys think?
Sorry, I spaced out. Could you repeat that again?
The whole thing?
Bitcoin Origins. So this is the first time I've btcorigins.com, right? That's what you're referring to? Yeah.
btcoriginstories.com.
Oh, BTC Origin Stories. 1 second. And this is from Crypto Graffiti?
Yes, he made basically a series of videos. It looks like some of them were recorded at Bitcoin 2021. But yeah, like just little quick interviews with Lightning Network payments attached.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
And this is the first time I've heard about it. Sorry. Chaz.
It came out a couple days ago, so that makes sense. But Crypto Graffiti, I think, is kind of well known for kind of doing these projects where like splitting the amounts that are getting paid. I believe LN Bits is what is powering the backend. If anyone knows better, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it is LN Bits.
Yeah, here.
And then I also believe that Fiat Jaff had a hand in it as well.
Cool. Shouts to Fiat Jaff. Yeah, this is awesome. I'll be sure to check out a few of these later. Bitcoin sign guy. Love him. Oh, shouts to Christian. Cool. Yeah, that sounds like another really awesome project. I think Crypto Graffiti also had some other thing earlier. Sort of a proof of concept like this where you could split the payments with KeySend with multiple destinations using some sort of DJ proof of concept. So he had an event where a DJ was spinning tracks and you could tip the DJ if you liked the tune, and half the amount would go to the DJ and half of the amount would go to the recording artist. And I thought that was a really awesome sort of POC. And, people, they don't realize that, you can create more intricate setups. Like instead of just having like two parties where it's split 50-50, you can have, an almost infinite number of parties with different percentages. For example, like on, I guess, Sphinx or Breeze with the new podcast functionality, the streaming stats mode will actually go ahead and read the information from the RSS feed, where the producers, the show hosts, other people who contributed to the show in other capacities, they all have their key send addresses listed on there, which is pretty much just the public key of your Lightning node and what percentage of your tip should go to each party. And, it pretty much fires a key send transaction off for each of the parties involved. So I assume this is using a similar sort of setup.
All right. So I brought Juan onto the stage here. Twitter Spaces was giving me some issues, so I believe you're on stage. Can you? Do you have speaker privileges? Because on my side, it doesn't show you that you do.
No, it's showing as a listener for me too. So,
okay,
could just be a glitch, or you couldn't get it. Who knows?
Yeah, Twitter Spaces is very buggy still. So I apologize. One, could you directly message me or Evan and ask the question, and we'll ask it for you. Sorry, but we're trying to bring you up, but it's just not working for whatever reason. But yeah, in the meantime, one other thing that I wanted to bring up that was kind of a smaller project like that is the Bitcoin Smiles project, which is this project from El Salvador where they're raising money to pay for dental work for various people. I've already thrown some money into that pot, and I would definitely encourage you all to do the same thing. They accept, well, I think they're primarily going for Lightning transactions, but I guess if it's a big enough transaction, you might do it on chain as well.
Cool. Do you have the website for that?
Let me grab it here for you.
So load up some money onto Strike to send them. Oh, sweet. Already got some cash in there. Okay, cool.
For some reason, can't Google it right away, so let me just Twitter it, I guess.
Yeah, bitcoinsmiles.org. Bitcoinsmiles.org.
Say again?
Bitcoinsmiles.org.
Perfect. Thank you. But yeah, I think that's a really good one. I personally deal with dental issues as well, but I'm in the United States. I have a lot better insurance and all that available to me. So it's what I'd have to deal with is nothing compared to the people in El Salvador. So throw down some sats and make their life a little bit better, hopefully.
Sweet. Okay. Put my donation in. Gotta love it. BTC Pay server right here. Lightning Sats.
Yeah, I believe one of the BTC Pay server guys was responsible for helping making this a thing.
All right. Smooth as butter. Gotta love Lightning payments. Cool. Yeah, they're almost at their goal. It looks like they're looking to raise a full Bitcoin. It ends in 3 days, and they're quite far. They got 0.87 Bitcoin plus. Almost a third of that has been on Lightning, and they've had 628 contributors. Wow, that's a lot. And yeah, 3 days to go. So guys, check it out, bitcoinsmiles.org. Go donate to. Seems to be a really awesome cause.
All right, so I think I'm pretty much out on my. Oh, wait, actually, I think we have Lightning address. I wanted to bring up Lightning address. So the guys at Zebedee, I'm not sure if it's just the guys at Zebedee. Please correct me if I'm wrong on this one. But there's basically this alias system for the Lightning network that's coming out called Lightning address. That's supposed to kind of help with being user friendly and such. I am again going to be a skeptical asshole, as I am one to do. But like I don't know how much I care about this. Like I really want to, but like it really reminds me of one name that's the name of Blockstack before they were called Blockstack. And Netkey, if anyone remembers that like Bitcoin aliasing thing. And I guess my thing is I don't really like these kind of centralized aliasing systems. I guess LNURL might end up being a better way to actually get it in there. I'm not sure if they're going for that, but that does.
Chaz,
go ahead.
Yeah, I think you have a little bit of a misconception over how this works. So perhaps, Lightning address is. Well, there's two things, right? Like there is a centralized site that Andre, who also created the spec, made, and you could pass in like your invoice macaroon, and it sets it up for you, right? But in of itself, it is also just an extension to the LNURL pay spec. So you don't have to use this service to get this functionality enabled. Like you can set this up on your own server without the use of any centralized party at all. And that's what the special part of it is. Like the site where you pop in your node info and your invoice key for them to generate for you. Like I could understand, why you might not like that and see it as a centralized thing. But as its core, the fact that, you could do Chaz at lightningjunkies.net, you could set up your own server to be processing the LNURL payments for that. And it's just like a really easy protocol extension to the LNURL stack. I'm going to be supporting it in Zeus at some point, probably not Alpha 2, but probably 3 or 4 of the new redesign efforts. I personally think it's a really cool way to link people to your LNURL server and have them send you payments without having to generate an invoice or anything.
Yeah, it's basically an improvement over an URL pay, where instead of QR code, you can just send a share of Lightning address, which is more intuitive, easy to remember, and then you can get paid. And that is the main problem statement which Andre had, that QR code is still a code that you have to share through. Either it's really long or big, or you need to have a mobile device to really share it. So why don't you share something that people can remember? Right? That is the main idea.
Yeah, and furthermore, it could make a really easy way for you to move Lightning funds between services if they start you know, opting into this sort of protocol. Like Jack at Twitter, he could say, okay, everyone gets an address, so it's like your handle, so it could be like Evan Kalutis at twitter.com or
Yeah.
Evan Kalutis at ln.twitter.com. The only tricky part of there is, I would say, is like people can mix it up with like a proper email, and you can have the LN URL service have that account for you, whereas it may or may not have a equivalent on the email side.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
that's the only weird UI part of it. However, I think the rest of it is like really a net positive, and I'm really excited about it. Like I said, I'm going to be putting it into my app, and I just hope that more, services consider integrating. Like, how cool would it be, if you have your tips on Twitter and you could just go and send it to your Cash App account to cash out, or vice versa, and be like, oh, okay, I'm sending from Evan at Twitter to, Evan at Cash App, or something like that. Like, that would be really sweet. Or, different services like Zebedee. Like, you just send it to your Zebedee account, like Evan Kalutis at Zebedee.io. And, you don't have to worry about generating invoices. It just all gets generated for you by this LN URL pay server that's sitting on the background behind this web server and generating invoices for you. So, it's not like a huge gain as far as our capabilities, but as far as convenience goes and user experience, I think it could go a really long way.
Well, I appreciate the correction then.
Yeah, no worries. Let's mess around with it more, and maybe we'll have addresses soon. Hopefully, we all have addresses on Twitter soon. So go bother Jack Dorsey and the Twitter team to go integrate that for us. That would be a really awesome way to do it. So yeah, let's hope more services integrated. Hopefully, some exchanges. Hopefully, some media platforms, and it would just be sweet. But yeah, like I said, it's just that one challenge of like, okay, you got to make it clear that this isn't an email address or whatnot. So I don't know exactly what the solution is there, but I'm sure there will be some clever fixes. Oh, so guys, I got a message in my DMs from Guan, and this is a really good one. I think a lot of people have problems with this. So he says, question for Spaces. I'm trying to use private channels, and I can't pay invoices except to the node I have a channel with. Is this a restriction when using private channels that payments can't be routed? Okay, so Juan, let's get into a little bit about how these payments are made on the Lightning Network. So basically, the sending node sort of has to piece together a path to try to make a payment to someone based upon what the gossip is they're hearing on the Lightning Network. And what differentiates a private channel from a regular channel is that a private channel is not broadcast over the Lightning Network's gossip network. So when I ask, okay, Chaz, what nodes are you connected to with what capacity? And Chaz broadcasts that list to my node over the gossip network, he's not going to include the private channel he and, say, Suheb have together. So the one exception for this and workaround for if you need to get over those private hops is that when you're generating your invoice, you include your private channels, as those paths that are not broadcast to the rest of the network. You include them in your Lightning invoice. Now, I believe all the implementations have it's integrated, but I've only really been messing around with it on LND. On LND, if you're generating the invoice via the command line with the add invoice command, I think you have to just do -- private as a flag, and it will add those private channels to the hints for whoever's paying you to include those. And recently, in the Zeus redesign alpha, we've also included a little toggle to include those route hints for you. I think it's just called private. You just toggle it, and when you generate your invoice, those hints will be included in your invoice. So it's not going to work for you if you're the sender and you only have private channels. You're going to need some regular actually it should, it will, because you have that path out. But if you're receiving, no one is going to be able to get to you using those hops unless you broadcast them in the invoice that you send to people to pay. So yeah, look into that flag. It's just a private flag. You set it to true, and you'll be good to go.
Yeah. So just to add, so basically, if the recipient has private channels and you're trying to send payments to it, the recipient has to ensure that when they are generating the invoice, like Evan said, they include routing hints. And so, for instance, if the recipient has RTL configured, RTL supports routing hints. So if you're on LND or C Lightning, you can, and when you generate an invoice, you can click on private routing hints. And that will ensure that your invoice has the routing information. So the idea is basically your invoice, if it's a private channel, the invoice includes routing information so that the information on the invoice can be used to construct the path all the way to reach the node over the private channel. So if you have a private channel, make sure if you're generating an invoice, you include private routing hints. If your counterparty has a private channel, they have to ensure that they include private routing hints. If they are using an app like Eclair or maybe Phoenix, for instance, that feature should be automatically handled in wallets like those, because most of the time those wallets set up private channels, so they always include routing hints too, so that the party sending the payment can reach those channels.
So on, try it out and hit us up on the side. Happy to help you with that. But yeah, it really should just be as straightforward as just including the hints, and you should be ready to fly with that. All right. Chaz, do we have any other topics for today I want to get into?
I think we're pretty much run dry here. I think we had mentioned that one too. So, I think we're reaching the end of the show here. Do we have any other questions from the audience? Because that might be the fastest way to get us to another topic. If not, we might just run the hell out of here and just be screaming.
Oh wait, hold up. So we'll let people come up if they have questions, but now that we have a little lull, now I could ask Suheb. We could get into our dev chat right here. So we got offers. It merged into C Lightning REST. What's going on? What's the status? Do we cut a release yet?
Not yet. So it's in the release branch though. So we have support for. 1 second. Let me see. So we have support for creating offers, support for fetch invoice, support for disable offer, and one more thing. Yeah, in 1 second. List offers. Yeah. So offers, fetch invoice, list offers, and disable offer. These are the 4 APIs which are included. And then there is another API which is included called decode. You would need a decode, which is the new API, to be able to decode Bolt 12 invoices. The existing one will not be able to decode Bolt 12 invoices. So altogether, these 5 new APIs will be added in the next release, which is 0.5.0. I'm working on that right now. Been working on it for the last week. So hopefully over this weekend, we should be able to get a release version. And then you should be able to play with offers. But it's highly experimental right now. There might be issues. I have tested the APIs, but if you face anything, let me know. Might require some sort of a quick fix as well.
Absolutely. I'm going to probably be experimenting, adding this updated C Lightning REST code to my node and messing around with. Obviously, I'd have to make some new views, like list the offers you subscribe to, right?
Yeah. So
That decode endpoint would have to be used if we determine that it looks like a build 12 invoice.
the interesting thing is the recurring invoices. That's where you'll have a different challenge, from an implementation perspective, because for recurring invoices, you would need to save some information on your local device, because you would need to schedule, recurrence, right? So basically, the offer functionality would work in a recurrence in a way that the wallet has to, at the set frequency, remember that I have to now generate an invoice, fetch the invoice, and then pay it, basically, right?
Gotcha.
So you have to have some sort of a schedule or something that you need to remember locally so that you can drive that schedule, right? And
Yeah,
that's what.
because we don't have a database to maintain the offers, at least not yet. This was
Yeah.
something Rusty was talking about with us 2 weeks ago. He said,
So
currently we
so
got to
what?
save it on the application layer, but like Nadav from Shared Bits was trying to have some sort of offer store or like general store for data in C Lightning.
So I think that was Sashek. Basically, uh, that's right. I have not played with that feature yet, but I think C Lightning is offering some sort of a local storage. But I still think you will not be able to be dependent on that entirely. You need to have some sort of a reminder or local control on your device so that you can at that moment or at that frequency you can come back and execute it. That
Gotcha. So even if the data is stored through C Lightning, you still need a mechanism to check that data store and then fetch and trigger prompt the user to pay.
Yeah, because that has to be local. It cannot be remote, right? The server cannot, C Lightning cannot remind you that, oh, come wake up, you have an offer to pay, right? Or an invoice to pay. So that has to be locally on the device. And even with RTL also, this is a new paradigm for us. We don't have any database so far, but with this we would need to have some sort of a database and some sort of a schedule, a cron job, which runs at a pre-specified frequency and looks at any outstanding offers which need to be paid, and then pays them and then sleeps back.
Cool. All right,
That's
that makes a lot of sense. This will be fun.
Yeah, it's interesting, but entirely new implementation pattern. But definitely, from a UX standpoint, there are many interesting applications. Like from a UX perspective, even a regular offer, right, which is actually not recurring, you can save that as well. Let's say if Chaz generates an offer of a one-time offer, not a recurring offer, but an offer, let's say for 50 sats, right? When you scan that in your wallet, you can actually give your user an option to save that offer, right? Chaz 50 sats, let's say, right? And then every time you don't have to actually scan that. If you have that offer information, you can just go back, okay, maybe I need to pay Chaz 50 sats again, right? So I'll just go and then pull that up and then pay. I don't have to scan the QR code again. So you can save it as a contact list or a offers contact list, right? So that is actually an incredible UX improvement. And Chaz can even make, for instance, or anybody can make an empty any amount of offer, right? So don't set an amount in offer, just keep it any. And then if you save that, right, that particular becomes like a contact list in your wallet. And then every time you have to pay that person, you go to your contact list, pull that up, put any amount, and then pay. So no need to scan any QR code or anything like that. Just share that offer information once, and then you can pay through that anytime you want. So it becomes like a Cash App contact list or something like that.
Awesome. Yeah, between that and Lightning addresses, seems like it's going to be easier to just send your buddy some sats over Lightning whenever you want.
Right.
So yeah, slowly but surely we're getting there. There's a lot of different options about what you could do it, but like we've said earlier on the show, we need to see much more experimentation, find out what works, what doesn't. And it's going to be fun to try to integrate some of these things and figure out what's working and what doesn't. So, Lightning Network just has a lot of development ahead of it, and things are going to look, like night and day if we're looking down 5 years in the future. But ultimately, this is when, some of the most exciting things on it are going to happen. So we're really, really grateful to be around and seeing the, advancements on all these different layers, and get to play a little part in it and roll out our wallets. It's awesome. So yeah, awesome. Thank you, Suheb, for working on that stuff. That is awesome. Definitely going to be playing with it too. So, Chaz, anyone asking to get on stage, or should we call it here?
My Twitter Spaces is being very quick about letting me speak here, so I apologize for the delay. But I don't have too much else on my side. My Twitter Spaces is not letting me know if anyone else is requesting it. It basically doesn't show anybody. So I think there's more than 2 people in here, but I can't tell because it just shows like a blank space. So if anyone else has any questions, please let us know in the next few minutes, because if we don't, I think we're going to go ahead and call this a show here.
Yeah, absolutely. So try to, if you can't get on stage, folks, try to DM us. We have open DMs on Twitter. In the meantime, Chaz, you got any good shows or interviews queued up in the coming month or two? Anything?
Yeah. So then, what was it? The last part?
Anything you can tease?
Oh, sure. So the next episode that we're going to release, I'm not sure if we're going to end up delaying it, to be honest, but the next episode is with Nicholas from Bitcoin Beach. Like, I keep butchering his last name, so I'm just not going to say it right now. But yeah, we have him on, and we kind of just talk about Bitcoin Beach. I was, a little slow about getting to the El Salvador topic officially on my show. Like, we obviously had many Lightning Friday episodes where we kind of touched on it, but this is one where we kind of focus on Bitcoin Beach, ask what has changed since early June, and just kind of go over like how he got started in it. Apparently, he was very much into virtual reality before he got into Lightning. And that's actually something that I've heard multiple times before. JD from Money Socket, also, I'm sorry, JD and Dean, who run Money Socket, both got their start in VR. And I remember a couple other folks who got their start before Lightning and Bitcoin in VR. And I think that might be an interesting topic to touch on before we close out, is how the adoption curve for VR and Bitcoin and Lightning, etc., are kind of similar. They're not obviously exactly the same because they're very different things themselves. But like, think about how the Oculus Rift, transformed things in like 2011, but how 10 years later the penetration overall for VR is kind of shit. You could probably say the same thing about Bitcoin to some extent, that we have had a lot of proof of concepts over the years, but overall still like a pretty small number of the overall people on this planet use Bitcoin, and the adoption of the Lightning Network's even slower behind that. What do you think about the kind of adoption curves here?
If you're listening to this show right now, you're early to Bitcoin. If you're listening to this show right now, you're really, really early to Lightning Network. Yeah, we've got a really long way ahead of us. Obviously, we've seen a lot of encouraging signs. But it's, I think most people will sort of know of, or at least have heard of, Bitcoin. But not most people have not made Bitcoin or Lightning transactions. And, even if it's not people's preferred ways to make payments with Lightning or have savings with the Bitcoin, we need to get to the point where everyone, or the vast majority of people at least, have interacted with on-chain Bitcoin or preferably Lightning payments. So yeah, it's definitely an uphill battle, and there are a lot of challenges, and people are going to come to it because of different things, whether it be their favorite adult performer coming to some platform that accepts Lightning payments, or they're just trying to escape their local currencies, inflation. It's going to be interesting to see how things shake out, but we are still very, very early, all things considered. So if you're here, pat yourself on the back. But make no illusions. Like, there's still a hell of a lot of work left to do.
Are we sitting on 14.4K modems? Relatively speaking.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I guess that's a good analogy as any, really. Yeah, I mean, we were really just scratched the surface on what's even possible, and the stuff we got to talk about today, including these new platforms, new ways of paying each other more easily. Thinking about implications for content creators. Like, this is just all just scratching the surface of what's going to be not only possible. I mean, it sort of is possible already, but what's going to be the norm in the next 10 years. So, like I said, the next 5 years, 10 years even for Bitcoin are going to be incredible, and we're going to see some really amazing things unfold in front of us. I feel like I've already seen some nutty stuff since getting into Bitcoin. I'm sure we all have, but it's going to get crazier, and we got to do our part to help build things out and onboard more people, and most importantly, like, educate people about what the possibilities are and what this technology enables you to do.
Yeah. So I don't know, Chaz, whether if you saw Willy Woo's tweet today. I think it came out today. It's basically he's comparing the Bitcoin adoption with internet adoption. So what he's saying is that currently we are at internet 1997 levels in 2021, and in what he's projecting is, in 2028 we will be at internet 2010 level of adoption. So I think you're right. We are at the stage of 144K modem in terms of Bitcoin adoption.
I think in 1997, though, I think I finally got a 56K modem. But okay, I get your point, though. Yeah, I just pulled it up. It's a pretty interesting explanation here. I think that there's good reasons to be kind of skeptical about that analogy. Just because it's like, I feel like people were saying, it's like Bitcoin's the early version of the internet like a decade ago, and we're saying that they were in the 90s back then, but time's compressed in a different way when it comes to these technologies. So yeah, like, I would be very surprised if very large amount of adoption doesn't happen in this decade, and in a very similar path of the internet. Because by like 97, that was like getting to be an inflection point, but obviously wasn't really until the early 2000s before it just kind of turned parabolic, right?
Right, that's right.
So, who knows what will actually happen? I think a lot of us want a particular answer, and that might skew our internal timelines of when things might actually happen. Like, I think in like 2015. I was expecting this shit to be done by 2020 already. Would be in a disintermediated world where everything is all Bitcoined out and we don't have to worry about centralized governments whatsoever. But that was probably a little optimistic of me there. But I think that's pretty much it. I did not receive any other questions. I'm guessing you didn't receive any more questions either, Evan.
Nope, nothing else from my side. So yeah, let's call it here, Chaz. You want to sign us off?
All right. Well, I want to go ahead and remind everyone about our fabulous sponsors, Lightning Junkies, the best Lightning Network podcast in the two universes. We have Zeus Wallet, your key to your Lightning Network node on mobile. And then we also have Anboss, the best Lightning Network Explorer possible. I know I'm probably exaggerating a little bit there, but hey, it works. But for now, y'all, I'll see you on the Lightning Network.
Peace.